Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Radious Total War for Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. And here I want to talk about the Chaos Dwarves specifically because they are quite amazing with Radious Total War, more so than they are in the base game. To be certain, some of the issues in the base game do carry over for the Chaos Dwarves in Radious Total War, but there have been improvements, significant ones, from my personal perspective. Now, of course, one of the things about Radious is that it adds a lot of different units to each and every faction, and that's one of the great things for the Chaos Dwarves with this mod, because you see, Chaos Dwarves have a good unit roster, but it can certainly feel limited at times. Not because there's not enough units, but also because there's simply not enough ways to get a lot of them in the portion of the campaign where it counts, which is specifically the early game. But even then, even when you account for that, you gotta understand that Radius does play the late game differently. Factions are going to have more units, they're going to have a lot more recruitment sources, and so that means that even in the late game, factions are going to be more dangerous with Radius Total War. And that's one of the great things, because in the base game, it's very, very easy to get to a point where after 20-30 turns of the campaign, all you're doing really is playing the enter and button simulator. And that is a specific problem for Chaos Dwarves, because Chaos Dwarves do start out limited, but then grow to be extremely powerful. Problem is, of course, that by the time you get extremely powerful, you've long won your campaign. It's a combination of things, unit recruitment, as well as lords and heroes having more skill points. And them having more skill points means that even lower ranked lords and heroes are inherently more useful and more dangerous to deal with when you're tackling the AI. So that is a very important point with regards to the Chaos Dwarves. There are changes to the Legendary Lords, be it faction effects. If we look at Drazah, for instance, over here with some of the additions he gets, like, labor gain post-battle, for instance, in his campaign, evasion chance when using tunneling stance, all that kind of stuff. So that's great to have. And then there's also all kinds of building changes. Not perfect, for the record, but absolutely a bunch of different building changes, especially when you're talking about recruitment situation, because you don't just have unit recruitment from your basic military structures or advanced military structures, you also get it from things like the Sorcerer Prophet Estate. So you're looking at Science of Hashut, for instance. You're looking for the Temple of Hashut, you're looking at the Tower Roads, you're looking at the Tithe Chamber, you're looking at the Dreadquake Mega Mortar, providing you certain recruitment options. So there's all kinds of different decisions to be made with regards to what units you're going to recruit and where you're going to get them. Because again, you do have a wider variety of units to recruit, and that means that the kind of decision making that you have with Chaos Dwarves in the base game, which is pushing you to get as many materials as possible and as many armaments as possible, increase your hero capacity, doesn't quite apply in the same way. There's still issues, absolutely. The bigger issue is the material aspect, because you do require a lot of materials for these structures, though given the fact that Radius is far better with regards to resource allocation, you won't have the same kind of annoyances with regards to that as you do in the base game. Like over here, turn 19, I'm getting 2,300 resources per turn. I'm getting 500 armaments. I'm getting a decent amount of influence. So resource gains do seem increased. Though maybe what I would certainly say is that some of these building costs, especially higher tiers, like 3,000 materials for this particular structure, for instance, can end up feeling ridiculous. But at least you're doing something with materials and resources. Even though some of the times when you're taking provincial capitals, it just feels like, okay, I'm going to have to dump 10,000 materials to start constructing shit. And the same situation does apply to armaments to a degree. Right there. Maybe some of these buildings could be constructed for gold, but then again, we do have a lot of things to spend gold on already. I'm not quite sure exactly what I would say. Maybe raw material production should be increased even further with respect to it. Caravans are still kind of useless, honestly. They don't give enough resources to make things worth it. Like, for instance, over here, I'm going to get a couple of materials, 644 materials, right here for the Black Crag caravan, which is kind of pittance when you're talking about what you actually need in a campaign. That's always been the problem with the resource system from Troy, is like, you can either have a lot or you can have very little, and there's kind of no middle ground. If you have a lot, that's great, a lot of choices, dynamic choices, etc. But if you have very little, choices end up being destroyed. They haven't quite fixed that. Another problem to be talked to cast dwarves is the fact that their initial building construction times are very slow. Now, of course, this is balanced by the idea that they have instant construction for laborers, though I would like to point out, so the Dark Elves and Dark Elves do have regular building construction times. So maybe regular building construction times should be reduced. I mean, look, there's ways of reducing the time it takes to construct things, like, harbor guilds, various different research things that you get, but that's kind of adding to the problem that you have a lot of things that make you really powerful in the long term, but they don't apply in the short term, so it means your early game sucks, which makes campaign replayability feel weak. I mean, I would say some of the costs here for research should be reduced substantially. Like 1,500 for a bit of campaign movement range from a specific building and upkeep from tower patrol buildings is just kind of not worth investing in. Or Industrial Revolution. Just saying, not quite worth it. Or, the influence situation is not as problematic, but certainly the armament situation, again, it's all about the early game, that flow of the early game situation. But that's with the economy aspect. The good side of it, the really, really good side of it, is that they vastly increased the unit capacity that you have by default. Emphasis on by default. So, for instance, I have certainly increased certain unit capacities here, but you start with like core infantry 7, ranged infantry 7, elite ranged infantry, etc. There's a lot of things to like about this because it means you're not in that situation. Oh, you want to use cool units in your army? Enjoy having to construct the production building and then also increase the capacity to even be able to use those units in the first place. There's a lot more units, but also there's a lot of ways you can actually use them practically, like artillery, ranged infantry, regular infantry. It means your armies look less like, oh, I'm going to get a mega stack in like 20 turns or start getting one, and more like, I'm going to be running around the campaign map with various armies fairly quickly. And the real question, the real limitation is constructing the recruitment buildings in the first place. I think those recruitment buildings, be it construction times and costs, and maybe even tiers, should be reduced. But the fact that you do have a much better army variety, simply inherently because of the fact that you do end up being able to recruit a lot more units very quickly, does end up helping you out a lot as a player. And that's greatly appreciated, especially once you get the campaign rolling. So basically what I'm trying to say is it's very good what they've done, but they could have gone a bit further. The problem is, of course, how do you balance that with the inherent fact that Chaos Dwarves do get much stronger? A lot stronger as you play the campaign between research, technologies, mass laborers, all that. You look at the Tower of Zara and all the bullshit benefits it gets, it's like, yeah, eventually you just steamroll everything that's in your path. And that's kind of a bit of a problem, really, when you think about it, because it shouldn't quite work like that, I would dare say. So it's really the case situation where maybe the things that you get later on in the campaign should be reduced, or certainly some things removed. Towers are looking at your research as well. But the core race should be better, so you don't have this kind of balancing issue where the early game sucks, but once you get past that, you build up, you're nigh on unstoppable. That's the problem. It should be a more gradual build-up, but the core should be better. That is what I would say with regards to gas doors. But don't get me wrong on this. I certainly do go over a lot of these kind of details, critical details, etc. But the core as is in Radius for Chaos Dwarves is substantially better than the core that they have in the base game. Like, just the fact that I'm running around right here turn 20 with 3 armies that are filled to the teeth with damn powerful units is a lot better than what we get in the base game. I'm not going to sugarcoat on that. It is better. It is vastly superior to the experience that we get in the base game. I do appreciate that. I just think it could go even further. That's my perspective. Costine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications.